Hi, I'm Lance Lambert. Thanks for tuning into the Vintage Vehicle Show. We are in the city of Orange in California at Circle City Hot Rods. This is a traditional hot rod shop. A lot of great cars, really great projects here. There's all kinds of cars out in the world that have been built here that are quite nice. And the guy that builds those, or at least the head guy, Jimmy White. Come on in here, Jimmy. How you doing?
Lance. How are you?
Good. Thank you for allowing us to come out here today.
Oh, sure, my pleasure.
Yeah, and what a cool shop. I learned about you in the past. I was at a Grand National Roadster show in Pomona. Saw a booth you had, saw some of the work that you've done.
Yeah.
And it was the real deal.
Yeah.
So how'd this all come about? How'd you end up with this shop and doing what you do?
Man, it all started when I was a kid, basically. I was always into cars, and when I was 16 or 17, I bought a 65 Mustang Fastback and bought just the shell basically, and built an engine for it, got it running, driving, and then I kind of started getting into the hot rods when I was in my earlier 20s, and then just it kind of spiraled from there. You know, started working at a bunch of different shops, and then eventually started my own shop. And I've always been into, you know, the old style of hot rods, the traditional style. The
traditional thing has come back with such a vengeance. It never went away, but it gets more publicity now, and there's some kind of other styles that are going along with it, the whole tattoo and the whole everything. What's your feeling about that? I mean, the traditional, what would be considered by the viewers and in the hobby, the traditional style of hot rod never went away, but it sort of got sidetracked a little bit. And as I just said, it came on with a vengeance. Why do you think that happened?
I think it's just a simpler form, a simpler form of hot rods. You know, I got to be honest, I thought a hot rod for me was never attainable. And then I met a group of guys that all had traditional hot rods, and they were building them for cheap. And I realized, like, whoa, I could have a hot rod. You know, it doesn't have to be a $200,000, $300,000 high dollar car. You know, I could build a traditional hot rod with swap meet parts, you know, kind of scavenging for parts here and there, and have a cool car. You know, and I think it's the simplicity of it that people like. You
mentioned a group of guys. Car clubs seem to also have re-emerged as a huge part of the hobby.
Yeah, that's. I met the Shifters, the guys in the Shifters car club.
Very famous club.
And I started hanging out with them, and they all had, you know, really neat traditional cars that were all really traditional. You know, all old parts, and I just realized, like, man, this is something that's really neat.
Well, let's go inside and take a look at what you got. All right. Jimmy, we're talking traditional in your shop. You can't get much more traditional than a flathead with tri-power on a 27 Roadster. Well, what do you have going on here?
Yeah, this is definitely a traditional style car. It's a 27 Roadster body on a 32 frame that's been narrowed to fit the body, and then it's got the flathead motor with 3 2s.
Your shop here is overflowing with tri-power, six-pack manifolds, Chrysler. I mean, just, you know, you can retire with what you have, and I'm serious. You put this stuff on eBay, you never have to work again. It's great stuff.
Don't say that in front of my wife.
Okay. How did all this stuff come to you?
You know, I've just been collecting this stuff for years. When I was younger, you know, 24, 25, I would go to all the swap meets, wake up really early, and I just started buying stuff at the swap meets. And when I first started buying all this stuff, it was really cheap. And, you know, obviously the price is inflated now. But yeah, I just started collecting it a long time ago.
So
I got really lucky.
Yeah, they're very lucky. All the cool stuff here. Somebody has a project, they bring it to you and say, build this for me, or do you pick up the phone and the guy said, yeah, I'd like to have a really tricked out 27 traditional Roadster, what can you do for me? How did all these cars in here end up?
This car came together, this customer bought this car with the frame done and the body mounted on the frame, so it came to us probably like 50% done, and then we're finishing the car. He supplied the motor, he, you know, told us the style of the car he wanted, and he knows that we cater to that style. So he kind of just lets us go with it.
You have a Triumph sitting here, a project, looks like a 650 Bonneville, huh?
Yeah, it's a 650. I'm building a little Triumph Bonneville bobber project.
I'm going to do a little blasphemy. In my heart, a real motorcycle is a Triumph, not a Harley. I'm very sorry. Harleys are great, but first place is a Triumph. I used to own a 59 Bonneville that I was the owner until the local motorcycle gang decided they needed to own it more than I did. It suddenly disappeared. Something you do a lot of, bikes, or a little of?
Yeah, a lot of my friends have bikes, so I help them out sometimes with building pipes for them, or just welding and fabrication on them. But this is just a little project I wanted to do, and just to kind of do it. I got everything for pretty cheap, and I just thought it'd be kind of fun to build a bike.
So I've noticed in the last 10 years, and maybe mostly in the last 5 and on up, that you could get, you had to pay for a really outrageous traditional hot rod that was done right. You're going to pay $40,000 to $80,000 for it. A motorcycle used to be, a really outrageous motorcycle was 5 to 10, and all of a sudden they seem to be 20 to 30. What happened?
Definitely.
Just because they could get it? Or?
I think it's just the demand. It's kind of, a lot of people are getting into bikes right now, or they have been for a while, and everything kind of goes in cycles. I think a lot of guys that were into hot rods are into bikes now, and it's just the demand. I think that's what I think.
So it's the same kind of client that, as you're saying, somebody that has the traditional hot rods in their garage wants a bike to go with it, or do you find that it's really two different markets?
No, sometimes. Like this guy, this customer here, he has a Harley that he's been working on, an old, kind of like bobber style Harley he's been working on. So I think a lot of it goes hand in hand. I think a lot of car builders mess around with bikes and stuff like that. Garage mates, all right. Yeah.
We have some other projects here. Let's go take a look at them.
Okay.
You have is this a 31 or a 32, Vicky?
It's a 31 Vicky. Yeah.
31 Ford Victoria, very rare body style.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of rare, you have a 348 Chev in here. I remember in the not too distant past, and so do a lot of people, that these were not a cool motor to have, and then I don't know how these things happen. Suddenly it is a cool motor to have. What do you think it is that within the hobby, for a long time I drove a 58 Rambler American that was all street rodded up, and people thought it was kind of an oddball, and then the Detroit Autorama picks a Rambler wagon as the Riddler Award, and now all of a sudden they're cool. What do you think it is that turns something from not being desirable to desirable within the hobby?
I think it's just to be a little bit different. Like this car wouldn't have the same effect with a small block in it. It would be just another small block powered, Vicky. But with the 348, I think it has a little more appeal. And the owner of this car, he was tossing around engine ideas, and he really liked the idea of having the 348. He's this is basically his dream car. He's been building this car in his head for years, and that's the engine he really wanted to use. It stands out. Yeah.
He told me off camera that you will do anything here from building some headers to building a complete show car.
Yeah.
Great looking headers on this, and going into a collector box.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we he's really collaborated on building this car with us. He's come in with his own ideas. We've given him some ideas, and he always sends me pictures of old gassers. And there was a Willys gasser here, an old race car, and it had that style of header on it. And I kind of always envisioned this car with that style. And I ended up doing it like this. I told the owner of the car that's what we were going to do. And he's really happy with the way they turned out, and so am I. I think they definitely look the era.
I love collector boxes. At home I have the trap cover from a Drag Fast collector box on my wall hanging there. So
I think the headers needed to be really prominent on the car, as part of the whole gasser style. A lot of those cars had crazy headers coming through the fenders, and I really wanted them to be a prominent piece of the car. It lets people know, like, it's it's not a hot rod. You know, the nose high rake, you know, it's a gasser. Like it's a car that you could drive and then take to the track on Saturdays and race.
Any prediction on what kind of looks might be out there in 5 or 10 years? Is your crystal ball working? Anything you think will come back? I mean, the gasser thing definitely went away, and now it's coming back.
Yeah, it's definitely coming back. I don't know. I mean, I think it always kind of changes. If you look at Street Rodder magazine or Rod and Custom 10 years ago, you'd never really see a traditional car in there, and now there's traditional cars on the cover, so who knows? I mean, it might, I think it's just going to kind of evolve from maybe start, a lot of guys are building traditional cars now with higher tech twist to them. They're doing Hillborn style injectors that have been converted to EFI, so we might start seeing more of that, because I think this style is definitely a timeless style. It looked good back then, and I think people now, if you build a traditional car right with the right parts and proper engineering and welding, it even holds true now. People look at these cars and they're like, wow, this is built nice, and it looks like it functions well. So I think it's probably going to start evolving towards that. A lot more function, nicer parts. The aftermarket's really catering to this style. So I think it's just going to keep probably getting bigger.
It's fascinating to pick up one of the little books, one of the old Rod and Customs or whatever, and you're going through, and well, that's kind of goofy looking, that's kind of goofy looking. This car was gorgeous in 1956, and it's gorgeous now.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and some of them, it's just everything is perfect.
Yeah.
What do you think that is? Why is something look dopey from back then, and something built in the same town at the same time still looks perfect today?
I think, a lot of it has to do with the car's proportions, the paint. I have to admit, like, I agree with you. I've looked at some of those old magazines, and I'm like, wow, that car looks really bad. But it was par for the time, but then you also look through it and there's cars that are amazing, and I think they're amazing because the stance, the proportions, and the color. Some guys just really, had an eye for that, and I think, that holds true now. Like that same car, no matter what, is a timeless classic. There's a lot of hot rods that are like that.
I asked you about your crystal ball and timeless classics. Do you think there's any time in the future when vans out of the 70s with orange shag carpeting are going to be all the rage again?
Yeah. Actually, I think a couple of years ago, guys were kind of getting back into those. One of my friends actually had one with the fender flares, the carpet, everything.
Yeah, kind of like lava lamps and.
Yeah. I think everything. Those styles, everything always kind of comes back as being cool again.
Jimmy, one of the things that I don't do on the Vintage Vehicle Show is anything off color, anything, this is a family show, but this might be a first. We have a naked Hemi here.
Yeah, it's just the bare block. It's the starting grounds for, this chassis. We basically set the chassis up. It's at ride height on the table. We hang the suspension. And now we're in the process of mounting the motor. So we use a mock-up, bare block for that. It's a lot easier to use. It's light.
So that's what a Hemi looks like without all the stuff on it.
Yeah. It looks a lot more impressive once you get the heads and the valve covers on there.
You're a Hemi guy. You have all kinds of things here. How did that
It all started when I bought my my Model A, my first hot rod. I built it like probably 15 years ago, and it came with the Hemi. So it all kind of came from that. I just started, when I first got it, I didn't even really know anything about them. Then I just started, getting the history behind them and really paying attention to all the different models and makes. And I've just always been a fan. It's an amazing engine.
And they're beautiful physically. They're such a cool looking motor.
Yeah. To me, there's nothing better than you look at a hot rod and you see that valve cover peeking out from behind the grill shell. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're all about the valve cover.
They make a lot of power as well.
Yeah, good motors. You have a platform here that you are, looks like you've obviously put a lot of work into the frame and different parts of this, but this is the early end of a project.
Yeah.
And you go all the way through, as we talked earlier, to finished products.
Sure, yeah.
tell us a story about building a car here from the time it gets here to the time it goes out the door.
You know, for a car like this is, you know, an aftermarket 32 frame. It's getting a new Brookville body on it. So there isn't much metal work or stuff involved with it. It's pretty basic. A car like this could be built pretty fast. A car like the Vicky is definitely more labor intensive, you know, plus, you know, we're doing a lot of one-off stuff on it. So the time period depends on the car, the style, and the body style.
And the checkbook, I would imagine, too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could, if somebody, you know, wanted to pay to have a car built in 4 months, we could certainly do it, but it would be a lot more money.
The economy, you know, we hear about it every day more than we want to hear. Has it affected the hot rod industry, or there's a lot of deep pockets that they still are finding the time and the cash to do stuff like this?
Yeah, I mean, thank God, we've been, you know, relatively unaffected. I think the people that are into cars, they're still gonna spend the money to have cars built. But, you know, maybe some of the outsiders that want to get into it, they might be holding back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, one of the shop owners, a real active shop that I talked to, he said that instead of having a 2-year waiting list, he has a 1-year waiting list, which means he has tons of work. It's just they don't have, you know.
Yeah,
so the bills are
I mean, that's the
paid.
same with us. We have a bit of a waiting list. Cars that are, you know, have some guys that are waiting right now, obviously, to get some cars in here. But we try to get the stuff in and out as fast as we can.
You're building traditional cars here. Got your Vicky and the Roadster, and you have something that it's not unusual to be in here, but it's a little bit unusual to be in this kind of a shop. Let's go take a look at that.
All right.
Jimmy, you're participating in the project here, a 57 T-Bird. I know that back in the day, Ford had 3 of these that they were racing, and they were back when they figured out about making things extra light and dipping metal and making things thinner, and they had this on. So this is something that's replicating that? Yeah,
it's kind of a loose clone of those cars. You know, he didn't want an exact, you know, he changed the tail a little bit. The original ones just had the screen around the driver. He made it set up so the passenger could have a windscreen as well. So it's kind of a loose clone. You know, it's close. It's a little more driver friendly, I think.
I wonder how the little bird purists are going to take to this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they'll either love it or hate it. You know, I think, you know, I kind of like it because it's almost like he's, you know, recreating some history.
And they should appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of Ford's racing history, you know, so even though it's kind of been cut up a little bit, it still has that flavor to it, you know.
You're building traditional hot rods here. By that I mean, you know, 20s to 40s, you know, cool old rides that look like they used to look, and newer technology. If somebody comes in here with a, say, a Fox Body 88 Mustang and needs some stuff done to it, or I mean, you have a 57 T-Bird here. Do you limit what you have in the shop here, or if it pays the bills, you're there?
No, yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of, you know, roll bars and roll cages in later model, you know, like race cars or something like that. I'm always up for the challenge. You know, like if somebody came here and said, I want to build an 89 Mustang drag car, you know, it's not really our specialty, but we know how to do it. So I think it would be a cool project because we could kind of mix our hot rod style with, you know, the drag race style. So yeah, I'm always up for the challenge of stuff like that.
I think Fox Body Mustangs are going to be the next rage, the next affordable rage.
They're
so
light,
cool.
fast.
Yeah, great cars. We talked earlier about the stuff you have in here. It's unbelievable, the things you have here. Every show, I'm obligated to tell a warm and fuzzy story. So you have something here that it blew me away. I've never seen it before. The poster on the wall.
Yeah.
This is for a hot rod show. I can't figure out, it's in Tacoma, Washington at the CPS Fieldhouse, which is a college of Puget Sound, which is now the University of Puget Sound. I went through my high school graduation in that building. I actually accidentally, the statute of limitations has gone by now, I accidentally set fire to the roof of that place. I had a flare gun and I was in the parking lot there, and I wanted to see if the flare gun worked, and that flare went and landed on the roof of the building, and I was about 14 or 15 and I beat feet out of there, and it didn't make the news, so I don't think I did anything substantial. Where did you, I offered him a large amount of money for this poster and he said no, so I'll email you on a regular basis, but how did that come into your collection?
I was at like a thrift store, you know, just walking around, and I was looking through some of the stuff, and that was in there. It was at like, you know, an antique store. Yeah, it was just, you know, they had it there, and I just figured it'd be something that'd be really, you know, it goes along the lines of the shop.
And you paid about $5 for it?
Yeah, it was relatively inexpensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
150? Will you take 150 for it?
No, no, I can't sell it.
I'm trying. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the middle of the set of a 50s juvenile delinquent movie here, a hot rod movie. A lot of cool stuff in here.
Yeah, we got a pretty good mix of cars over here. We got this 29 Roadster, Model 8 Coupe, and the 36 there. And there's 2 more Model 8 Coupes back there.
Are these customer cars or projects or a combination?
This is a customer car that we didn't quite finish it. We had some stuff to finish up on it, and then the customer took it home, and unfortunately it got a little rusted and rained on, so now we're in the process of getting everything cleaned up, and we're going to finish up a few things on it and then send it on its way.
Do you run across people with you know, some half-built project in their backyard that by golly they're going to finish it, and 10 years later by golly they're going to finish it, and all that good metal is there rusting away? Yeah,
I've seen that a lot. I've even offered guys, hey, would you sell this thing? No, I'm gonna finish it. But yeah.
Speaking of that, that poster, 200?
Nah, I'm gonna have to pass.
Okay, it's just paper.
Thanks for asking.
It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. Hey, you've got one outside that is a project that looks like it's on its way. Let's go take a look.
Yeah. Okay.
One of your newer irons here, a 49 Chev. Tell us about this.
This was just a pretty basic job for us. We did the lowering, rebuilt the front suspension, did some mild custom modifications to it, and from here it's off to get painted. And then once it comes back from getting painted, we'll reassemble the car.
Looks like there's a lot left to do, but I can also see that you have done an awful lot to it.
Yeah. I mean, there's right now there's bodywork and paint left to do on it. All the mechanical stuff's squared away. So basically what's left to do is the bodywork and paint, and then reassembly.
If somebody wants to have you work on a project for them, or complete a project, or build a turnkey car for them, how do they get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of us through the website. It's www.circlecityhotrods.com.
And the amazing thing is it's right there on the screen.
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you very much for watching the Vintage Vehicle Show. Always great to have you on board. If we didn't have you, we wouldn't have a show. So we will see you again next time. And Jimmy, that poster, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that poster.
The poster.
250? 250 bucks?
Nah,
300.
I still can't do it. No.
300 bucks?
No.